All right, Zane, awesome to see you. It's very exciting to me that we're starting to potentially podcast again. How are you doing?
I'm good. Second, if you count the LinkedIn Learning course plus the B2B buyers, this is the third incarnation of some Zane and Nitin regularly scheduled programming. But
Oh, that's
I'm
fun.
I miss you, man. It's good to see you.
Nice to see you. So I thought the way we could kick off our inaugural show is just be like, what is this show even about? The Zane and Nitin show. Do you
Let's
have
do
any
it.
thoughts on what you think we should cover here, or I can share my own as well?
I think the origin story's somewhat interesting. At least this is the truth I tell myself for this show. Anytime I have something interesting or controversial, or I have a thought that I've been stewing on, you are one of the first people I'd just text a brain dump to. Even my 2 a.m. voice note to you about why PowerPoint is a dying format and AI might be the future of all communication. And so I appreciate that you were like, we should just immortalize some of these conversations and bring some more people into it.
That's awesome. I really appreciate the 2 a.m. voice notes, and feel free to do anything. I think for me, I always enjoy talking to you, always enjoy our conversations, always learn from them. And I think there's so much going on in the world around AI, around technology. I love Claude Code these days, but I'm also interested in other topics around society and government and policy, personal life. I know we've had conversations around that as well in the past. And to me, having an opportunity to chat with you about anything that's top of mind for that month, I think just sounds like a really cool thing. And if we hit record and others find value out of this, then I think that would be amazing as well.
Love it. Couldn't agree more. I'll maybe put some poker chips on the table, and I'm willing to bet that there's going to be like at least a third of our time spent on the personal reflections, slogging through a lot of this stuff, and a little bit of this builder's FOMO of anytime a new tool comes out and you just happen to be on a family vacation or something and you're not able to stay at the razor's edge that week. Like that's actually an emotional load that I've
Mm,
definitely noticed I've started to carry over the last few years. But yeah, let's talk about it all.
yeah, sounds awesome. So I think we're not going to be having agendas. So we're going to totally shoot the shit, have a few topics that we have in our chat group and
Love
kind
it.
of take it from there. I was giving you a demo of my Claude Code setup right before we hit record. And you had some questions and then you're like, "Oh, save it. Let's
Yep.
ask live. Let's hit record first." So I have no idea what you're going to ask, but I'd love to hear what you were thinking when you saw that demo.
Yeah. So maybe I'll open with an intuition, I guess, I've gotten from Glean from the last year, which for those friends listening that I haven't met yet, that I work in product here at Glean, and we're building the world's greatest AI assistant for knowledge workers. And the intuition is everything for a product to land and actually have someone realize the magic, it needs to just work perfectly out of the box, zero setup. And anytime I talk to somebody that is so AI pilled, and I used to hate that term and now I've loved it again, but anyone that's super AI pilled, much like yourself, and I see these sophisticated setups, the first thought I have is, but how does someone achieve that level of obsession on day zero with zero configuration? And so, with that in mind, I'd love it if you could react to this graphic I just put in the chat, and maybe we can flash this up on screen for anyone that's viewing this podcast. But this is a doodle from Peter Steinberger, the creator of OpenClaw, and talking about the level of sophistication or lack thereof of agent setups over time. And I'm curious, do you resonate this? Where do you see yourself on this curve? Do you think it's shaped a little differently? Is it lumpier? What do you think?
Really appreciate your framing. It's interesting. The first thing you just said about the product needs to work perfectly out of the box with zero setup. I have to say, I vigorously disagree. Vigorously disagree. And I think that's part of my problem with Claude Code today. So I'll respond to the chart in a second, but let me just share my biggest problem with Claude Code today. Even if Open for Opus 4.6 is running on it or anything, I think it feels magical out of the box. It feels magical. Like you turn it on, you ask it questions, it just answers it, and you're like, wow, this is amazing. And I think, or I want to build this thing, I want to build this prototype, and it just does it. And you're like, I've never seen anything like this before. But I think for me, at least, my journey has been if I spent a little bit more time with it, I'm realizing that it's absolutely destroying my system and my setup and not at all doing what I would want it to be doing for the medium term, for the short to medium term, short to medium term. It is every time you give it feedback, it's, oh, do you want me to change your Cloud MD file? Do you want me to add this to memory? Do you want me to change that to your Cloud MD file? You want me to add that to memory? You want me to do this? You want me to do that? And it just, oh yeah, sure, because you're new. You think it's working perfectly because it gives the impression that it is, but what it's actually doing, in my view, is creating an incredibly shaky foundation that's going to be a hard hole to dig out of, that's not going to scale, that's not going to go in any, people are going to start interacting with that system out of the box like it is one entity that you are interacting with one to one, that maybe has some intelligence, but then bloat and lack of efficiency and it doesn't scale very well and like all sorts of problems. So I guess I disagree with the premise for a second. I can go a little deeper on why I think that. And I would love to hear your take on that. But then for your curve of agentic programming, yeah, the first time I used Cloud Code, please fix this. And then when I started learning about it and seeing how many poor decisions it was making, like really poor decisions, like just as a simple example, the project I decided I was very interested in was trying to build an orchestrator. Just happened to be the first project I was interested in. And so when doing that, parallelization is super important. Like you cannot have engineers trampling on top of each other. It has to be able to handle 4, 5, 8 kind of tasks in parallel and be able to handle that. And you can tell it, hey, this is important to me. You can try to block it and say this is important to me, and it's going to ignore it. And it's going to just do all sorts of hacky things and patch and not think about the holistic system. And it becomes a huge mess. So I would say like first couple hours, please fix this. First day or two, I was in this orchestration, complex orchestration. And that's I would say I'm probably in the middle to later stages of that now. This, hey, look at these files and then do some medium-sized change. I don't know who put this together, but I don't think that exists. I think context is so critical, and human judgment of good context is so essential. And it's at some point, and even from an accountability standpoint, you have to know that some human is accountable and has exercised judgment to say, this is an insight. This is something I want to take production. This is something I want to take responsibility for. So I think the human role of that, and then the human role of, and then once that's curated like that, being able to grab information from the right source. I think something like I use Glean every day. So I think using something like Glean to give you a first draft is cool, but I would never want that to be my source of truth. To me, that's an input to me populating my human curated knowledge system. So that, anyways, those are like a lot of words, but I don't know what resonates or what doesn't, what you agree or don't agree with.
There's a bunch wrapped up in that. Let's maybe take the first point around your first few hours talking to Claude Code and like where the magic comes from, and asking all these follow-up questions. Say, hey, do you want me to update your MD files? Do you want me to remember this for next time? Yada, yada. And then getting really hacky with these patches in a loop. A part of me feels like these are like somewhat product problems just in Claude Code that it needs to, that the team at Anthropic needs to address, and I expect probably will over time. But the thought that was brewing on my mind as you were articulating that problem is after having seen your kind of coding setup, I can see multiple agents working in parallel to do many things and some central orchestrator managing all of those. But at the end of the day, the interface that you're using to start all these tasks is a single input box where you're just like start task. And Said differently, I think the main user experience that feels delightful is like you are talking to just one thing, even if silently in the periphery there are an army of agents managing each other's contacts, each other's memories. Like in like a fictitious example, you just have a memory agent whose only job is fact checking. Does this align with how Nitin did this last time? And if not, I'm not even going to ask Nitin. I'm just going to remember this is what he said. And then I'll make a judgment on if I see this a second time, if I should merge this to master memory or something like that. But a part of me feels like that is like a product problem to be solved when using Claude for the first time rather than an inherent limitation of it. Let me go back to, I was taking notes
Okay,
while you
I'm jumping out of my seat to have some reactions to what you've shared already. Is it
yeah.
okay if I interject here?
Yeah,
Or
go
you have
for
one
it.
more
I'm
thing?
also just
Okay.
looking back through, I'm going back through my notes to recall one of the other points you brought up.
So to me, the ideal state of talking to one kind of super agent that knows everything and becomes that interface is a pipe dream. Like
Interesting.
that is not, I think I've mentioned this, I might have mentioned this to you in the past, but like I trust my agents to invest $3 to $5 max before going completely off the rails in token costs. And so like sometimes they can one shot longer than that. And I think part of my journey is like, how can I trust it with more and more dollars to actually produce quality output? But like even Opus 4.6 and like everything I haven't been as deep in Opus 4.7, but all of these are so expensive that I'm like hesitant to. I want to really trust the output and be like, I want to be surfing that quality and cost curve, like value. But I believe the model in my head of how this evolves is right now, I think it's like a contractor or intern who's doing $5 to $25 to $100, maybe $1,000
Like
tasks that
task
you
rabbit
trust.
stuff.
That's it. That's where it is today. Like one intern. Where is it going to be in 3 years? Maybe I'll trust it with 5,000 to 10,000, $5,000 tasks if I really put the time in, maybe. And so, like, when you get to a point where you can trust it as a full worker with all the judgment and everything, like I trust it like a full data scientist. I trust this like a full engineer, a full tech architect, a full executive, or a designer. That already, like that to me is so far out there because whatever, like, it even assumes like someone like that's making $100,000 a year, and I need to be able to trust this system to invest and put the output of that. Then at that point, you're going to need some chief of staff in front of that, or some CEO or exec in front of that. That then you not only do you have to trust the hierarchy under it, and then the tasks under it. And so to me, like I care so deeply about quality. Like no, I don't want this just doing stuff that I have not like because I've seen what it does to my Cloud MD files. I see what it does to my skills. Every time I ask it to do anything, I see the poor judgment that it makes over and over again across such a wide span of things.
But
So I need to trust it. So that means like the one inbox is like maybe, but only after I can trust in the individual roles and then trust as an organization, which is a group of people. And then you trust, hey, there's something even over that can like, there's so many steps to getting there.
so I hear that for sure, but like I'll raise this is like partly philosophical and partly realistic, but like I remember what it was like to even work together on some projects. You trusted Zane, maybe sometimes when you shouldn't have, when we were working on some product jams, right? Like maybe I was only right 60% of the time or 70% of the time. Where like at the end of the day, the name of the game is like how quickly can you make the best decision possible with the least necessary information. Like assuming speed and quality of decision making are the two things that matters, maybe you don't need a 100% ironclad analysis to make directionally the right choice given two options. Where some of these like quality gaps and lossiness, I hear you on cost, and that's like a limiter, right? And that immediately means some can pay to play the game and some can't pay to play that game. But I don't know. I see a world where if I have four decisions to make, they're all binary, and I am okay firing off four agents with some critical amount of context and some knowledge of how I think about these problems, and they come back to me with, let's say, a 70% accurate answer. Maybe that's enough to unblock my progress. And so the other thing I wanted to come back to in your early kind of like assertion as well is like this notion of a human curator or like a human stamp of validation that like, okay, I can trust this. This is one thing that I think is like, I don't even think the social contract that we have in society is ready for like AI to make a single diagnosis. And then if it gets it wrong, everyone's okay just being like, oops, that's AI. You want to be able to sue somebody. You want to be able to blame somebody. And maybe that affordance changes over the course of a couple generations where this technology has actually proliferated. Because even being here in the Bay, it seems like AI is everywhere. Like when I go to order a coffee,
Yeah.
they still ask me if I want to pay with cash. Maybe it's a function of time, but I don't know. I really, not to say that I'm like shooting for low quality, but I think the quality bar right now is maybe unnecessarily high because we keep comparing this to human output versus the acceptable bar might actually be lower.
Okay, so my quick reaction to that is it depends on what you're building. Amazon, obviously, whatever, type the two-way doors or something, how easily
Yeah, yeah.
reversible. If
Yep.
you're testing some copy changes that are not going to get you sued and you want 70%, like if you're being defended by a lawyer in a
Yep.
court case, 70% doesn't. If you're building a
Yep.
foundational capability that a bunch of people are going to be building on top of that as like
Yep.
a platform layer, or how are you going to model something really important to the business, architecture? For me, when I say it's not good enough, I'm like, it's like I am building an orchestrator. I could give the one prompt, build an orchestrator, and this is the screenshot of what I want it to look like, and it will just mess up, and it will never work. Like when you have, so the problem is my game that I am playing is how do I build multiple digital workers who can effectively collaborate with each other, give each other feedback, and get better as they work together as a team. And so a problem when you're just interacting with one unit, it's okay, that's one thing, it messes it up. Okay, I caught that. But as soon as you introduce 30% error with multiple things going on in parallel, it
Yeah.
literally exponentially, like the whole thing is junk and doesn't work. And so to
Yeah.
me, the game is at this stage, it's quality. It's like we might, fine, if you're doing rapid testing of legally trust safe things in something, like fine, okay, do 70% quality. But any at scale or architecturally important or something that is going to 10x or 100x or 1000x over the next couple of years, to me, everything is quality and cost. Like we have to build stuff that we trust at a reasonable cost. If you just do Open 4.7 and oh, let me read this code base, and you're not looking at the cost, and it spent $40 to read the code base, like shit, I was just building a little prototype, and would I have even paid a contractor $400 in token costs to do that? Like it just,
Oh,
to me, the reason.
but would you? Like I
No,
hear a
I would.
lot.
No, that's what my judgment. So my judgment is like I've worked with contractors before, and
Yeah.
so if I'm not willing to actually invest this, my judgment is like then I don't want to invest it.
Yeah. What's the right way to put it? The maybe part of where my like thoughts are coming from is the art is maybe the difference between building personal productivity versus building systems that others will depend on. And I think in that case, yeah, you're absolutely right. Maybe the quality bar is orders of magnitude higher, right? Like I think of like in real life example, like you wouldn't want a 30% probability that this apartment building is going to collapse. But if all you're doing is putting a picnic table on it, yeah, maybe 30% probability is that the foundation is going to collapse. That's fine. But like I think about one really interesting kind of usage pattern I have. So my coding setup is incredibly sparse. Incredibly sparse. Like I actually can't remember the last time I was like really depending on like referencing a skill or a slash command explicitly. Instead, what I've spent a lot of time doing is like curating tons of examples and context and reference points and storing them in a way that my agent like knows how to interact with those. And I'll give you like a very tangible example. So there are two engineers at Glean that I day in, day out am amazed by. Their names are Mingtao and Isan. And I basically pointed a combination of Claude Code and Glean because I was doing this partly at work. And I had both of those products basically go and analyze as much context as possible about what makes Mingtao and Isan incredible at their jobs. Not just the PRs, Slack conversations, Google Doc comments, like GitHub comments, meeting transcripts, everything that encapsulates like how they think about technology, how they think about problems, how they sequence steps, etc. And encapsulate that with a bunch of examples in what ended up being skills, that's fine, but effectively in files that contain those examples and that synthesis of what makes them incredible. And then I did the same thing for a couple of the architects who work at Glean, and Tao and Takir, to encapsulate what is their feedback style, what is their philosophy on architecture, to try and, again, with those examples, distill the types of questions, commentary, pushback, and so on. And now I was working on like a small feature myself around like adding different widgets to my like iPhone lock screen. And when I was working with Claude conversationally, I said, hey, go put together like a development plan based on how Tao and Takir might put together this plan and add a couple examples and voices from Isan and Mingtao. Then I put together that plan, I reviewed the plan, and then I said, okay, now go develop it as if you were Isan and Mingtao. And so it's like continuously referencing these examples. But again, it's all about like in my mind, the only usage pattern that has felt natural to me would be to talk to these systems in the same way that I would talk to a colleague, which is I wouldn't say, hey, Nitin, go reference slash coding best practices. I would say, James is amazing. Can you do it like James?
Okay, I have a suggestion.
Yeah.
So, can you do this like James? Can you do this? Tomer's former chief product officer at LinkedIn, one of the most amazing people that I've ever worked with, interact. Can you do it like this person? Can you do it like this person? Can you do it like this person? What those people are doing, in my view, are tasks. What was the name of the person?
Isan.
What was that?
Isan.
Isan. So Isan is doing an RFC, creating a tech design. Isan is doing a diff, reviewing some code. Isan is writing some strategy docs. And Isan is like looking at some metrics and analyzing data. And so those, let's just say, are like 5 different tasks. So my slash commands are not that different than what you just described, except I care much, much, much more deeply about the task that I want to get done and refine that and refine that. So it's not like the humans don't matter. So even typing, do this person would, do this person would, and do it so like this person would. You can imagine a world where there's 20 people who have been amazing and you just want to get all of their knowledge and expertise in how to do strategy reviews. Or there's so many. So to me, the building the strategy reviewer, the slash strategy reviewer, is better than, hey, can you look at how this person did it, this person did it? And like now you're saying, oh, maybe I've curated it. But then, hey, there's maybe a style. I actually don't want you to just do this as a one-off, but I am going to have you read this strategy. I am going to tell you my personal critiques of this strategy. I want you, or feedback or questions. I want you to tell me what you think of my questions. I want you to critique my questions so that I get better at it. And I want you to independently use the best practice of the 20, 40 different people who've done it to do it. And then I want you to give feedback on how you yourself can improve on that. So it's every task, again, then it also becomes independent. Okay, now work as if you're this person, work as if you're this person, work as if you're that person. My game is getting multiple personas collaborating with each other in order to accomplish a goal. So each stage of that, to me, it's like I would basically start the exact way you started And I actually have a skill called best practices. Take best practice repos, people, and content, and try to get it and apply it to my system. But basically what you're saying is take best practices, but to me, it's like missing like, hey, I have this task 1, task 2, task 3, which is the task that needs to keep getting better and better over time, not the referencing that human. That's just like an input to getting that
So
task.
so maybe a part of this is like also just the retrieval magic that for anyone building like harnesses, this is my future request to you. But the thing that I found so challenging is actually the following. Every week, I set aside like at least 2 hours to just play with a new AI tool. To just figure out, oh, it's cool that they made this experience this way. Oh, it's funny how they refer to this concept over here when it seems a lot similar to this other one. And the thing that I found so challenging is I see this really steep curve after playing with a tool for an hour where I need to relearn a new setup and my existing way of working is
Yep.
non-portable,
Yep.
where instead for the learnings exercise, I'm almost better off staying in like normie
Yep.
mode, only using natural language because everyone has a text input
Yeah.
composer and just seeing how the zero shot works out.
Yeah.
And like case in point, I've really tried to get myself to use cursor more seriously rather than just going straight to the terminal to talk to Claude Code instead. And I'm actually starting to appreciate some of the taste in that product rather than just living in a terminal, which is what I had been doing maybe the last 6 months prior. So it's
I I
like
you
like
I
it's
have some
said
thoughts
said
on that.
said differently, I guess in a world, just to put a bow on this, is in a world where we might be using 20 tools and setups aren't composable, are we not just better off learning how to use the most common denominator we have, which is our words?
Yeah, I have some thoughts on that. Two thoughts now based on the latest thing you said. But one thing that I've chatted with another buddy about, which is exactly what you just said, is like, hey, why would I spend all my time building an orchestrator when I know Anthropic's going to come out with it in 2 weeks? Like,
Yeah.
and then what was the point of spending hours? And then you're spending your time playing with this other tool, and I'm going to have to redo everything I have if I were to actually
Yep.
and it becomes an endless sort of cycle of like
Yep.
everything I'm doing is obsolete. So my point of view on this is actually Claire Vaux had a good podcast. I think it might have been Lenny's podcast where she talked. There's some people who they become just geeks only about their setups versus actually doing the work, and there is a risk of going too far on that side. But the way I think about it is everything I want to build is for a use that I had. And I wanted to do this, and I was copying and pasting my Claude MD file into ChatGPT over and over, 10 times back and forth. I was doing that. It was so painful because I wanted the feedback. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to build a way within Claude to automatically get feedback. But I'm like, I don't want it to go feedback forever. I'm like, hey, just go 3 rounds back and forth. Okay, what happens if they don't agree? I want a structured 5-day alignment. So it's like, and then it came out with like Codex came out with their plugin,
Yeah.
and it was all that work obsolete. So the way I think about that is my work that I did solved my use case. I know the world will be coming up with things, and at some point, a priority might be to refactor that part of my setup and actually use the new latest and greatest. But right now, my Codex skill that I created before is good enough. And it literally does exactly what I wanted it to do. So I'm okay that the world is trailblazing ahead because mine's working for my setup. But I want to keep learning about what, and you just said, hey, these tools spend 2 hours in a code. I don't spend 2 hours actually using tools. What I do is track X for repos, and mostly repos and some content and people. And I just put it into my system, which is another one, which is how would you compare that to mine and what would you recommend I do? So now I'm not spending 2 hours looking at the repos. I'm just having my system look at the repos and make its own recommendations for how. So that's a way I feel like my system it stays pretty at the cutting edge because it's always, and there's not that many people. Basically, there's Boris Cherney,
Yep.
and there's Gary Tan for GBrain and GStack, and then Andre K.
Yep.
Those 3, 4 people, and you're probably pretty good, like for a best practice. And so,
Yeah.
anyways,
Yeah.
we are so at time, but we really got into it.
Strong start. Strong start. And anyways, in summary, on this chart, I think Nitin is squarely at the top of this bell curve.
And I don't believe in the right of it.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome.
Oh,
See you next time.
this was awesome. Great chatting.